In just 50 years, games have gone from dots on a screen to worlds that look, sound, and feel real. But what happens when the line between playing a game and living in one disappears? In this video, we'll trace the journey from the earliest pixels to what the future holds for us. Before we talk about the future of video games, we have to rewind. Not to yesterday's big graphics upgrade, but all the way back to the moment it all started. The moment a few blinking pixels stopped being just pixels and became a world we could step into. In the 1970s and early 80s, video games were pure abstraction. Pong, Space Invaders, Pac-Man, these weren't worlds in the modern sense. They were more like puzzles wearing costumes. Your brain did most of the heavy lifting, imagining those yellow squares as coins, those shapes as enemies. Back then, the magic wasn't in photorealism. The late 80s and early 90s saw the rise of the golden age of 2D games. From Super Mario Bros. To The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, 2D pixel art stopped just hinting at worlds, it started painting them. Developers learned to push consoles like the SNES and Sega Genesis to their limits, layering backgrounds, animating weather, and weaving stories that players could feel. At this point, games became actual, virtual places you visit. Then came the mid-90s, and with it, the great dimensional leap. Polygonal 3D graphics, Super Mario 64, Quake, Tomb Raider, now started to add depth to your experience. Now you're no longer confined to a 2D plane where you can only turn left or right. Now you could turn a corner, look up at the sky, or peek around a corner. Camera control became a skill. Map layouts expanded into vertical mazes, and for the first time, the term immersion started showing up in gaming magazines. But with depth came ambition. Developers wanted not just bigger maps, but living worlds. By the late 90s and early 2000s, we were entering the age of open world and simulation games. These games led you down a multiple scripted path. They began to be like simulations, where you set the conditions, interacted, and the world reacted. Take, for example, a 90s game called Black and White, where you're a deity of a village who worship you. You had the ability to create and raise some creatures. These creatures mirror your morality. If you were kind to it, it would protect your villagers. And if you were cruel, it would transfer the aggression to your villagers. The gamer in this sense was kind of also a developer of some sort, co-creating the story with the simulation itself. The problem is, this is kind of an illusion. They gave you the feeling of infinite choice, but behind the curtain, every choice was still mapped out. Let us look at another example, The Elder Scrolls II: Daggerfall, for example. Released in 1996, it promised one of the largest game worlds ever created, a sprawling fantasy kingdom stretching across thousands of towns, cities, villages, and dungeons. The trick is, most of it wasn't hand-built. Instead, the game used procedural generation. They were essentially algorithms that could shuffle pre-made building blocks into new arrangements, creating maps and dungeons on the fly. To a player, it felt endless. You could ride for hours in any direction, discovering castle ruins, hidden caves, and bustling cities that seemed unique to your journey. But under the hood, the game was still pulling from a fixed set of ingredients, reusing and rearranging the same pieces over and over. It gave the feeling of unlimited freedom, what game designers call the illusion of choice. You could go anywhere, but anywhere still meant somewhere a developer had already built, just shuffled into a new pattern. Now let us talk about the 2010s and early 2020s. This is an era where realism is no longer a dream, it's now the standard. Physically based rendering, PBR, makes metal look like metal, water reflect like water. Ray tracing and path tracing simulate light so accurately it feels like you're standing there. With Unreal Engine 5's Nanite and Lumen, developers can drop film-quality assets into games without killing performance. Worlds are massive, detailed, and breathtaking, but they're still hand-built. Every rock, every wall, every NPC path had to be crafted or at least placed by a human. And that brings us to the present's biggest problem. We can build worlds more beautiful than ever, but it takes years and hundreds of people to do it. Studios spend more time placing assets and writing dialogue trees than imagining what's possible, which raises the question, what happens when we remove that bottleneck? When we can create a new explorable world, not in months, but in minutes? Because that's exactly where we're heading. We've reached a strange moment in gaming history. For decades, building game worlds took thousands of hours. Now, for the first time, we're seeing tools that can shortcut some of that heavy lifting and free developers to focus on the fun stuff. Not long ago, procedural generation meant randomizing map layouts or shuffling enemy spawns. Today, it means telling the generative tool and getting a fully explorable environment in minutes. This is exactly what we saw when Google showcased this new text-to-3D world generation software. At the moment, it still looks like those jarring AI slop, but there seemed to be potential. The premise sounds like science fiction. All you have to do is type a description, get a playable level. But under the hood, it's trained on massive libraries of 3D assets and code patterns. It's not inventing the concept of, quote, market stalls or alien wreckage from scratch, but it is assembling them into a coherent, interactive space faster than any human team could. For developers, this could mean faster prototyping, auto-generated side areas to fill large maps, infinite variations for replayability. For players, it's a step closer to worlds that feel endless. But worlds are only half the equation. A beautiful map with lifeless characters is just scenery. So how about AI-driven NPCs? Ubisoft's Neo NPC project, built with in-world AI, is already experimenting with shopkeepers, quest givers, and guards that remember what you said, have their own backstories and schedules, can improvise within safe, curated boundaries. NVIDIA's ACE Avatar Cloud Engine goes even further, combining speech recognition, LLM-based dialogue, and facial animation to make NPCs act like autonomous agents. This is different from the current scripted NPC systems that require you to click Next in a scripted A/B dialogue box. These NPCs can observe what you're doing, form opinions, and adjust their behavior. Example scenario. Imagine you're playing as a street-level hustler in a gritty open-world city. One day, you swipe a stash of goods from a market vendor and slip away unnoticed. You keep doing jobs, thinking you got away clean, until weeks later, you're ambushed in a dark alley by a hired enforcer. This wasn't part of a scripted quest. It happened because the game's AI remembered what you did and decided the merchant would want payback. Moments like that show how alive these new worlds can feel. But that realism comes at a cost. If your hardware can't keep up, the illusion breaks. And that's exactly where neural rendering steps in. Technologies like DLSS4 and RTX neural shaders use generative tools to generate extra frames between real ones, frame generation, upscale lower-res images into 4K with detail you'd swear was native, dynamically optimize materials and lighting without tanking performance. The result now is that you can push film-quality assets on mid-range GPUs and still hit triple-digit frame rates. This makes high-end visuals accessible without a $3,000 PC. And then there's the cloud. Ubisoft's Scalar Tech hints at a future where massive game logic runs server-side, the number of active NPCs, players, and simulations isn't bound by your GPU, your device is just a window into a living, breathing world. Pair that with services like GeForce Now Ultimate, which can stream games at 4K 120 FPS with ray tracing, and you get the beginnings of truly hardware-agnostic gaming. For players, it means no downloads and probably no storage limits. All you have to do is simply log in and play from anywhere. For devs, it means building worlds of a scale that would melt any single console. Finally, there's a shift not just in how games are made, but who gets to make them. Platforms like Fortnite Creative 2.0, UEFN, and Roblox are paying out real money to community creators. Epic Games distributed $352 million to Fortnite creators in 2024. Roblox paid $923 million to its developers in the same year. These are entire games and experiences living inside bigger platforms, pulling in millions of players. And as AI tools trickle into these ecosystems, expect that barrier to entry to drop even further. Put it all together and the picture gets clear. AI is building the environments, AI is populating them with characters who feel alive, AI is optimizing how it all runs, cloud tech is streaming it to you anywhere, and UGC platforms are making everyone a potential game developer. For the first time, we're not just upgrading graphics or adding new mechanics. We're watching the entire process of making and delivering games transform. But as exciting as that sounds, there's another side to it. We've seen this pattern before in other industries. Take YouTube, for example. Generative AI has already flooded the platform with low-effort, mass-produced content, and the fear is, if history repeats itself, gaming could face the same problem. A wave of shallow, throwaway worlds drowning out the truly innovative ones. But that is a topic for another day. If you've ever played an open world game and thought, I can do anything here, you've already experienced the magic and the limitation of the illusion of choice. Yes, you can climb that mountain or break into that house, but the consequences you face are still pre-written. The dialogue options are still on rails. And no matter how many branches a game offers, you're still walking paths a developer laid down months, maybe years ago. There are some people already trying to break that mold. People like Dennis Hasabi, working on games like Theme Park and Black and White from the 90s. His goal was clear: set up a simulation, give the player tools to interact with it. Let the world adapt in real time to whatever they did.
In Black and White, your giant pet creature didn't follow a script. It learned. Feed it, care for it, praise it, it would protect your villagers. Abuse it, neglect it, it would terrorize them. The game mirrored your morality back at you. This made it kind of a co-authored story. Back then, the technology hit a wall. To truly make a game where you can do anything, you need systems that can generate new content instantly, NPCs that can improvise instead of reciting, worlds that keep running when you're not looking. In the 90s, that was science fiction. You couldn't afford to create infinite handmade assets, and early procedural generation was too clumsy to feel truly alive. Fast forward to today, and those barriers are starting to crumble. AI-generated worlds mean a map can expand in any direction the player wanders, without months of manual design. AI NPCs can react based on your history with them, making each interaction unique. Cloud-native simulations can keep the world alive 24/7, even when you're logged off. It's not the illusion of choice anymore. It's the beginning of actual choice. This leads to a simple vision. Imagine an open world where the AI adapts the story around your imagination. Every decision you make, big or small, gets folded back into the narrative. This means no two players have the same experience. Not even close. Think of it like the ultimate choose-your-own-adventure book. Except the book is writing itself as you play. There's no more pick between A or B. You can attempt Z, and the world will figure out what that means. Deep personalization. This means a game where you can open any door, but where the choice of which door you open changes the very world you see. Games like the Stanley Parable played with this idea in a scripted, satirical way. But imagine it unscripted. If you befriend a guard early in the game, maybe years later in game time, he's the one who tips you off about a coup. If you destroy a village, maybe its survivors form a wandering band of thieves who haunt your travels for the rest of the game. These aren't just flags in a save file, they're consequences emerging from AI logic and simulation. This isn't just about prettier graphics or bigger maps. It's about a fundamental shift in what games are. From authored to co-created, from finite replay value to infinite variation, from entertainment to something that could feel like a second life. Now, let's play a quick what if. What if AI automates more of the work we do in the real world? Suddenly, people have more free time than ever before. The question then becomes, how do we fill that time? Some might pick up new hobbies, others might chase adventure in the real world, but many will turn to games. And not just as entertainment, but as a source of purpose. A place to live out other lives, explore new ways of being, and even find meaning inside worlds built not just for us, but with us. Of course, that raises questions. Imagine making a friend in-game who remembers your jokes, your choices, even your mistakes. At what point does that stop feeling like just a game? If the world reacts to you as if you truly exist there, how different is it from real life? At what point does playing become living in a simulation?
These aren't questions developers can avoid because in the next decade, the tech will make them unavoidable. And while this future sounds thrilling, there's a flip side. Because for every breakthrough that brings games closer to reality, there's a danger of going too far. That's what we'll explore in the next part, where realism stops being immersive and starts being a chore. We've spent decades chasing realism, better lighting, more accurate physics, sound design that makes you flinch. But there's a point where immersive stops being fun and starts feeling like a second job. Take this clip.
I'm ready to play. Let's... What? Cannot calibrate weight. Please connect your gaming chair to your PC for realistic weight calibration.
It's absurd, but it's also a perfect exaggeration of a real trend in gaming. The push for total sensory realism. We already see early steps toward this. VR headsets tracking head and hand movements, haptic vests simulating recoil and impact, VR treadmills for full locomotion, fitness games tracking your actual exertion level. These tools can be powerful for immersion, but if taken to extremes, every simple action, reloading, walking, sleeping, risks becoming a chore instead of a thrill. Game designers have always wrestled with this question. How much realism is enough to sell the fantasy without breaking the flow? In Tarkov and Arma, you might have multiple reload types or stamina penalties for heavy gear. That works because it serves the tension those games are built on. But for most players, realistic doesn't mean identical to life. It means just enough real-world logic to keep you invested, then bending the rules for fun. The technology we explored in AI-driven worlds, persistent simulations, reactive NPCs, will make ultra-realistic mechanics easier to build than ever. But just because we can make you breathe through a gaming oxygen mask doesn't mean we should. If realism becomes a barrier instead of a bridge, games risk becoming exclusive to only the most dedicated, most well-equipped players. That's the opposite of what the next generation of gaming should be. So where is the sweet spot in the future? Use AI and new hardware to make interactions feel more authentic. Let the realism serve the story and the emotion, not just check a, quote, simulation box. Keep optional layers for hardcore players while giving casuals a smoother path. That way, realism becomes a tool for immersion, not a wall between you and the fun. Because realism is only part of the equation. The real leap ahead isn't just in how real the game looks or feels, it's in how alive it is when you step into it. And in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see games that don't just react to you. They grow, evolve, and remember. That's where we're headed in Part 5. If the last decade was about making games look real, the next decade will be about making them feel alive. We can break this down into 3 time horizons and the changes we can expect in each. We're already seeing the first waves. Expect your next big-budget RPG or open-world shooter to have at least a handful of characters powered by lightweight AI systems. They won't be totally unscripted. Studios will keep tight creative and safety boundaries, but they'll remember you, comment on past events, and improvise small moments. Instead of handcrafting every alleyway, devs will use AI to block out spaces, fill in props, and even generate variant layouts for side quests. Players may not notice it's AI built. They'll just feel like there's more world to explore. Neural rendering as a standard option. DLSS 4, FSR 4, and upcoming neural shaders will make 4K with ray tracing playable on mid-tier hardware. Games will start shipping with AI quality presets alongside low, medium, and ultra. Early cloud-scaled worlds, Ubisoft scalar-style tech will let certain live service games run simulations server-side, increasing the number of active NPCs or dynamic events without melting your hardware. 3 to 5 years, the seamless simulation era. This is where things start to feel thoughtful, different. Fully browser-playable AAA games. With web GPU adoption and edge computing, you'll be able to click a link and instantly play high-fidelity titles in your browser. No installs, no patches. Just log in and go. Cloud-hosted worlds will keep running whether you're there or not. Leave a city under siege, log in a week later, and you'll see the aftermath. Not because it was patched in, but because the simulation kept going. Whether this is a good thing is debatable, as it would leave a lot of gaping holes open for developers to exploit. Games will invite players to submit AI-generated dungeons, cities, or events. The best ones will get integrated into official updates, rewarding their creators financially, similar to what Fortnite and Roblox already do, but on a AAA scale. Photoreal faces on a budget. MetaHuman animator-style tools will let small teams capture Hollywood-grade performances without the Hollywood budget. NPCs will be able to emote, grimace, and react in ways that sell the illusion of life. 5 to 10 years, the living universe era. This is where Demis Hassabis' vision and the seeds we're planting now fully take root. Agentic gameplay loops, factions, gangs, and even whole governments in-game will use AI planning to pursue goals, negotiate, betray, and retaliate. Your choices ripple out, changing the direction of wars, alliances, and economies, all without a single main quest prompt. Player AI co-design. Imagine you want to explore a mountain range. All you have to do is ask, and the game generates it instantly, with local wildlife, hidden ruins, and side quests that integrate into the larger lore. It's not just a map generator, it's a co-author that builds balanced, lore-friendly content on demand. 1,000 NPC cities with individual goals. Imagine a cyberpunk city where every person you see has a name, a home, a job, and a routine. They remember what you did, and the city's culture shifts based on collective experiences with players. Mixed reality as a casual default. Outside hardcore gaming, many titles will blend MR and traditional play. You could be sitting in your living room while your tabletop becomes a tactical battlefield, or walking through your neighborhood while a fantasy siege unfolds around you. The opportunities and the risks. The upside is incredible. Infinite replayability, deeper emotional investment, entire new genres blending simulation, storytelling, and social play. But the risks are just as real. Data privacy, the same AI that remembers your choices will remember you. Moderation challenges, persistent AI-driven worlds will be harder to police. Accessibility gaps, high immersion could demand high-end gear, leaving some players behind. Developers might be out of jobs. The challenge for developers, platforms, and communities will be ensuring these worlds are inclusive, safe, and, most importantly, fun. From pixels to post-reality. We started with dots on a screen. We've gone through sprites, polygons, procedural landscapes, and photoreal cities. Now, we're on the edge of something different. Games that aren't just designed for you, but with you. Games that don't reset when you log off. Games that can outlive their creators. This isn't just a gamer's thought experiment. As AI automates more of our daily work, we'll be left with more hours to fill. Some people might feel compelled to ask, how would we survive? But the truth is, humans have always managed to survive. AI is not the first man-made innovation doomsday people have claimed could lead to our destruction. And how we choose to spend them will define what we value. Do we use these new worlds as escapes? Or do we use them as laboratories for human creativity, empathy, and collaboration? In the real world, mistakes cost dearly. In simulated ones, we can try, fail, adapt, without permanent scars. That's a gift no other medium can give us. Games have always been about more than graphics or mechanics. They're about connection, with stories, with friends, with parts of ourselves we don't get to explore elsewhere. The future we've talked about today, AI worlds, persistent simulations, co-authored narratives, has the power to deepen those connections like never before. But it also carries risks. If these worlds become more comfortable, more rewarding, or more validating than reality, some people might start neglecting the very life they were meant to enhance. Think you already spend way too much time playing video games at the moment? Wait until the shopkeeper you robbed 3 months ago in game sends a hitman after you while you're busy fishing. The challenge isn't deciding whether we should build these worlds. We already are. The challenge is making sure they enrich us rather than replace us, to design them with the same care we give to our real communities. To remember that the skills, friendships, and lessons we take from them can, and should, feed back into reality. We've gone from pixels to polygons to worlds that will one day be indistinguishable from our own. The question isn't if we'll cross that line, it's what we'll do once we're standing on the other side. So, I'll leave you with this. When you step into the game of the future, will you be a visitor or will you make it your home? Tell me in the comments, because the people building these worlds are listening. And who knows, your idea might just be the next world we all get to explore.